A compelling detective story, a cloak and dagger action, and a romantic drama, all these stories were taken from real life. The history of Kazakhstan is inseparable from the world history. Reflections on history, our version.
Alexander Humboldt dreams about Asia in reality. Oriental Express, Emerald Fever, The Mysterious Prince, Baron von Humboldt, and the Jangir Khan. A lively boulevard sheltered by 300-year-old lime trees, the Unter Linden, the most elegant street. Here, one luxury building cramped up with the other. Due to that, perhaps, it is the most touristy. The Berlin Cathedral, the storehouse, is now a historical museum. And this building is in the Baroque style. The former royal palace, today the Temple of Science. The oldest university in Berlin is the Humboldt Brothers University, founded by the elder brother Wilhelm and became famous thanks to Alexander. This is a person of the world magnitude, one can say, just like Newton in physics, so Humboldt in geography. His first significant journey was called the Second, or Scientific Discovery of America. But even on the shores of the Amazon, he already dreamed of the next expedition. He dreamed of seeing Asia. Almost all the continents and islands were already discovered on the planet, and the only Asia remained a blank spot, especially Central Asia. Europe knew less about it than about Australia. The main important information was centuries-old works of Herodotus, Marco Polo, Rubruck, and Carpini. He's been waiting for this journey for 30 years. Kyrgyz emeralds, a mysterious German prince, and a mysterious meeting with the Kazakh Khan. We do not cease to turn our gaze to Asia, the trip to which is like a seductive dream. Alexander Humboldt. Our region was very interesting to him. This already says a lot. He did not like it much. Instead of climbing mountains, he would only attend celebrations and balls. In general, he was interested in everything. For 60 years, this is not the limit of scientific thought, after he wrote a book called Central Asia. Chapter 1. Oriental Express. There are no students today. It is the weekend, but you won't be able to sit in silence because of endless photo sessions and music. And yet, through centuries, history manifests itself. An elderly academic, causing a crowd of admirers. Humboldt's lecture gathered up to 1,000 listeners, and now it is as if he still is here. And you know, he failed a lot, but it all turned out as he wanted only when he turned 60. Once a curious letter from St. Petersburg came to the university. The Russian finance minister turned to Humboldt for advice. It was okay to use platinum in coinage. The scientist said it wasn't a good idea, referring to the unsuccessful experience in Colombia. And this occasion was followed by an interesting correspondence. In his next letter to Humboldt, the Russian minister mentioned an old dream, and soon it came true. The formal reason was the request of the Russian Tsar to conduct an examination of the Altai and Ural mines. It was the year of 1829. The German scientist was invited under the auspices of the Russian Academy of Sciences, for a large Siberian voyage. He was already at a respectable age. The baggage, knowledge was enormous. The guest of honor was released from customs control and traveled fast around the country. St. Petersburg, an audience with Nicholas I, the issuance of a very decent amount of money for the expedition. A funny story happened then, with money. Through Tobolsk to Ust-Kamenogorsk, the scientific cortege entered the city early in the morning of August the 13th, making a lot of noise. He had 2 people accompanying him. He had a special carriage. It was made in a factory in the Urals. It was a carriage on springs. This carriage had a margin of strength to withstand 12,000 miles of road without repair. A lot of people came to have a look at the unusual train made of carriages. In 1804, Ust-Kamenogorsk became a city. The population of the city was very small. Several streets with one-story houses, a stone fortress, under the commandant of Frenchman Liancourt. They lavishly welcomed guests as if they were crowned nobles. Gustav Rose traveled with Humboldt. He mentioned the name of Nakoryakov. He was the merchant Nakoryakov. Supposedly, he gave them such a grand welcome that they were surprised when they saw champagne and European wines on the table. But the official part didn't matter to Humboldt. In addition to the geography, the scientist encyclopedist was interested in mining, mineralogy, botany, history, and ethnography. He personally went down into the mines, which greatly surprised the hosts. He explored Ablekit, nearby hills, and sought confirmation of his theory of volcanism in Central Asia. Humboldt traveled to South America and other places, but he's never been to Tian Shan. He assumed that these were volcanic mountains. It is believed that this theory was denounced by Semyonov Tienshansky. But in fact, even before Semyonov, a lot of scientists expressed their idea that there was no volcanism there. It was here in Ust-Kamenogorsk that Humboldt met the namesake of Pyotr Semyonov, a participant in the December uprising, Stepan Semyonov, and he accompanied Semyonov the scientist. He was a very literate man. He was also interested in this region when Humboldt lived here. He was at a reception with the Tsar. After he had already traveled through Siberia, in Altai, at the time, he decided to help Semyonov. He told the Tsar that he met very educated people in the provinces, among whom, with sincere admiration, he mentioned the exiled Decembrist, and involuntarily rendered Semyonov a disservice. He was transferred to places even more remote. However, subsequently the former Humboldt companion served as an advisor to the provincial administration. But this happened much later. For now, the scientific caravan went further along the Irtysh. Chapter 2: Emerald Fever. Semipalatinsk deserves the name given to it by Russian officers, the Devil's Sandbox. George Kennan wrote in 1885. This grey, dusty town looked exactly like this during Humboldt's visit. Semipalatinsk was revived only by the minarets of mosques, the bright colors of gowns of Bukharian merchants, and yurts on its outskirts. How did everyday life in Semipalatinsk look at the time? Well, an ordinary provincial town. Newspapers came here late, a few months late. After a warm welcome in an unusual estate of Semipalatinsk with merchant Popov, who even had his own zoo with Tibetan yaks and argali, the travelers went to the Oriental Bazaar. People made their living with trade. The city stands at the intersection of several trade routes. Large fairs are held and you can buy absolutely anything. Here in the center of the intersection of the caravan routes, the Oriental mentality began to feel stronger. Humboldt's fame was surrounded with incredible rumors. Once injured by Barumta, he asked to identify the guilty party and return the horses. The academic carefully collected and recording all curious cases and scientific data. He was waiting for this trip for decades, even planned to stay in the region for 7 years. But the expedition was supposed to take a few months. Moreover, they did not even plan to go to Semipalatinsk. At first he was allowed to travel only to Sverdlovsk, and then he said he wanted to see the Urals, and they allowed him to travel there. When he saw the Urals, he asked to see Tobolsk. He was allowed to see the Tobolsk, and in Tobolsk, the Governor-General of Siberia, already at his own peril and risk, allowed him to travel to Ust-Kamenogorsk, through the fortresses on the Irtysh fortification line. From the Governor-General, travelers also received a gift that scientists of those years could not even dream of, a copper box of emeralds. It is called a Kyrgyz emerald, but they are pretty and green. The stones were found in the Kazakh steppes just 40 years before Humboldt's arrival, and few owners valued them like an Egyptian mummy, hardly daring to touch them with their fingers. For example, in 1823 in St. Petersburg, they sold a copper-colored emerald for 600 rubles. For comparison, the 8-month supply of the Humboldt expedition cost the Russian treasury approximately 9,000 rubles. This crystal has been considered one of the type of emeralds that the German travelers, satisfied with the acquisition, once again went on the road. Chapter Chapter 3: The Mysterious Prince. A two-story stone mansion and infirmary was built in the place of the Ablai Khan's residence, which was destroyed due to a fire, and the square in front of it is filled with people. They're all waiting for the honored guest. There are rumors that he's a relative of the Tsar himself. People did not know anything. They thought that a crazy Prince Kumplata is coming. People rang the bells and they went out to greet him. August the 17th, 1829. It is 12 o'clock, a historical date for Petropavlovsk. The installation of unprecedented astronomical instruments, which the academic used to conduct his research directly on the square, caused great curiosity among the local people. After determining the geographical coordinates of Petropavlovsk, the whole world will soon find out the evidence that the former outpost of the Kazakh steppe is located at the point 55 degrees north latitude and 69 degrees east longitude, and will appear in the British Encyclopedia. From the essay by Vladimir Shesterikov, I had the honor to visit. By that time, Petropavlovsk had already lost its importance as a fortress. The shopping town made a good impression on the travelers. It was famous for its fairs that were initiated by Ablai Khan. People brought their goods from Central Asia and from Kokand. There were caravans, nomadic people. All the Kazakhs worked in trade. The German scientist communicated with pleasure both of Kazakh bees and the Central Asian merchants. He was particularly interested in the history of a nation so unfamiliar to him. Horse racing and musical Kyrgyz holidays in the steppe, the brightest moment of the trip, writes Humboldt. He wrote, "I'm writing from an unknown city in Europe, Petropavlovsk. A few caravans came here, about 300 camels." He described the territory of the region. He considered it to be rich, interesting. Our location is the south of western Siberia. We have forest, steppe, and birch forests. He shared his personal impressions, how he looked for diamonds in the Ural Mountains, how he spent the night in yurts, how he tried to avoid abundant feasts, a few, but because of that, these notes were especially valuable. We finished here in a journey after 12,000 miles from St. Petersburg. The most pleasant memories were left by the places located in the southeast of Tobolsk. They traveled along the Kazakh line through Semipalatinsk, Omsk, Petropavlovsk, Trotsk, Orenburg, and Uralsk, from a letter of Alexander Humboldt. The collected data, such as the distance and exact time of arrival, the measurements of temperatures, became the basis of climatology. In the expedition papers of Humboldt, German order was exceptional. It's striking that he carefully conducted his research with German pedantry. He gave a full report to the sovereign, talked about the expedition, and even returned the money, the unused funds, back to the treasury. 12 years after the trip, a unique 3-volume Central Asia was published in Paris. The book became incredibly popular. When in 1841 he published a book on Central Asia, it became, I would say, an inspiring book for many scientists, travelers, and people who wanted to study themselves. Our famous Shokan Valikhanov was also under the strong influence of Humboldt's teachings. Epilogue: Baron von Humboldt and the Jahangir Khan. "I cannot die without seeing the Caspian Sea," Humboldt said. Another deviation from the route and expedition will travel through Urals to Astrakhan. They met with the Kalmuk prince Tumenov by chance. Jahangir was visiting him when a German scientist was brought to the Astrakhan steppes. The Khan regretted that the guest did not go through Urdu, where horses were prepared for them. Alexander Humboldt, a world scholar, noted in his writings in 1829 the educational cultural level of the Kazakh Khan Jahangir. A 28-year-old Jahangir impressed the academician with knowledge of Russian, Arabic, and Persian languages. However, to this day, it is a mystery what was the subject of the conversation between Baron von Humboldt and Genghis Khan's descendant, Bukhayev.